And welcome to the Queen of Hearts astrological forecast for this upcoming Pluto ingress into Aquarius. Now, this is my first self-initiated live, so I'm a little bit nervous, but I'm very excited because I have someone joining me. I've got Emily from Rebel Venus Astrology jumping on now. Wait a second, I think she is here. Now, we're going to talk about this very exciting and very, very long transit of Pluto through Aquarius that will take us through the next 20 years. Now, Pluto is going to be dipping in and then dipping out, and then it's going to be kind of coming back into Capricorn a number of times. Here we go. Here she comes. Just going to get Emily in here. Quite the 20 years ahead of us, and I think Emily's going to be presenting more of the evolutionary model of astrology, whereas I'm looking kind of at a more traditional lens. Hello.
Hey, good to see you.
How are you? I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Thank you for joining me today. I'm a little bit nervous because I haven't initiated one of these, but I want to do them more. So I thought no better time to do it with Pluto right on the MC.
Beginning of a new era, right?
Yes, indeed. Oh, my goodness. How are you going over there in America?
So far, so good. I mean, it's like, the same stuff. It's been a lot of kind of feeling like wrapping up of Pluto in Capricorn. I mean, I know we're not fully done, but there's been some kind of like death rattles. Like we've had some weird bank stuff going on, kind of reminiscent of like what went down in 2008 here in the States.
Mm-hmm.
So lots of environmental stuff. What about you? In your neck of the woods?
I feel like the news is off its head. I don't normally watch it, but I have been looking a little bit and noticing. I did a post yesterday about water shortages and the potential water crisis coming our way. And yeah, I mean, I think we're definitely on an edge, but a lot of change needs to happen. And I'm hoping that this might be the crisis that we need to get change. Because sometimes it has to get pretty bad before we do anything about it. We can stick our head in the sand for a very long time. So here's hoping.
Yeah. Well, there's Pluto to like make sure it gets that we make the change.
Exactly. So Pluto's entered into Aquarius, but we've had Saturn there for the last 3 years or so. So Saturn's been going over that, and we had the pandemic, and it's been hard times. And so now Pluto's going in to turn up the heat a little bit to that area of the chart.
Yeah. I think that we saw a lot of in Pluto and Capricorn. I know here we saw a lot of government corruption. And the thing is, it's been on both sides. Hopefully people can kind of like wake up to the idea that it's like, well, they're not telling the truth on either side. It's not, we have to pay attention to like the function of how the government is working and not get so caught up in like, Republican, Democrat, because in the United States, we've got like basically only two parties.
Yeah, and I feel like it's really just one. They just wear different hats. If it's anything like Australia. So now we should probably introduce you.
I was just thinking.
Yeah.
So I am Emily with Rebel Venus Astrology, and so I will be discussing Pluto today more so from a modern take with a little bit of like evolutionary tones kind of sprinkled in there.
Thank you, Emily. And Emily is the curator of some very fine astrological memes, so if you're into that, go check her out. She's got great taste and a great sense of humor. So yeah, I think a lot of people that are obviously on my side, on my channel know me, but I'm Danielle from Queen of Hearts Astrology, and I guess my background was essentially modern, but then I did a little bit of a dive into some traditional astrology. So now I predominantly practice Hellenistic, a bit of Arabic, and some kind of horary and Renaissance stuff. Which means that actually the stuff that I'm practicing predominantly was before Pluto was even discovered. So, I did work with Pluto in the past, and I still use Pluto in my charts, but I don't necessarily attribute it to any rulership of zodiacal signs. So I don't give outer planets rulership, which means, you know, for example, some people might say that Pluto is the ruler of Scorpio. We can just say it's a co-ruler. You know, I generally give that to Mars these days.
And
so so that's me. And you can find me at queenofheartsastrology.com. So I think it's a great balance. We've got some different perspectives and lots to contribute together.
Yeah, it's always good to get all sides of the coin, especially with astrology, because it's all relevant. And it's all relevant. There's always good information to learn. It just kind of zooms in on a different point of view.
Absolutely. And Pluto has got lots of different sides of the coin, because, you know, while some of the significations of Pluto can sound very severe and intense, and I've got a very strong Pluto in my chart, so if I'm looking down the camera like this, it's probably the Pluto moon conjunction I have in the 10th. But Pluto is, you know, it's concerned with things like power.
Yeah.
Now, power can be a great thing. Power can be empowerment when we use it for ourselves, when we use it to do something brave. Like today, I was hella nervous, and I thought, all right, I'm going to do it. And you were the same. You know, we did it. Go us.
Yeah.
But there's also the negative side of power used for the wrong purposes. And I think the thing about this, you know, there is definitely a need for an awakening and an awareness during this ingress of Pluto in Aquarius, because, you know, there's always a risk with Pluto that it could go the other way.
And I think it usually does. I think that with Pluto, especially Pluto transits like this, we're going to see both sides of power and control with a Pluto transit. It's really, and when I think about what Pluto does generationally as a transit, it's really kind of unearthing all of the toxicities of the society, of the powers that be. This slow rolling, moving planet that just, as it rolls through, it's uncovering, it's unearthing, it's bringing things up. Whatever is hidden comes to light. And once it comes to light, then we have the ability to address, to assess, to see what's actually going on. We get the full scope of the information.
Absolutely.
It takes a lot.
Absolutely. And this is going to take 20 years. So this is really going to magnify and amplify and intensify the conditions that are happening on the planet at the moment. Because Aquarius it's a humane sign in traditional astrology. So it has to do with people. Okay, it has to do with the population. And in a sense, you know, it comes with higher virtues. But we saw Saturn moving through Aquarius, and we had some pretty dicey stuff going on. So there is a dark side to Aquarius. You know, Aquarius can be about collective freedoms, like all group freedoms, over the personal. Okay, choosing the benefit of the group instead of individuals. So I'm a little bit concerned about human rights as far as individual human rights go for people who might not fit into the group. And I mean, Aquarius is a bit like that, isn't it? It's a little bit of a quirky sign. But yeah, I think that this is a little bit, it's definitely an opportunity, as it always is, but I can see that there is definitely a risk, and especially with a lot more AI coming in.
Yeah, I think we're going to see both sides of what Pluto and Aquarius can do. The more beneficial side, and the more of that kind of like ruling with an iron fist type of thing. I mean, we're talking about a fixed sign. So people are going to be working with very fixed ideas. And, you know, when you've got fixed ideas coming together, it doesn't flow easily. I think definitely, especially here in the States, we're really seeing an attack on women's rights, gay rights. I mean, pretty much if you're not white and straight, we're seeing everyone who doesn't fit that description being attacked right now. A lot of overreach of the government, especially over women's bodies. I think we're really going to have to fight, I think, before we get to this place where it's like we're all working together, we're all like looking out for the other. I think it's actually really going to start with the people coming together before the government gets on board. Like, I kind of see this thing where I almost feel like we're going to see less and less people kind of relying on what the government says, or even like really paying attention to what they say. I think we're going to see like a lot of like underground communities that's already happening here.
Yeah.
Have been banned. We're already seeing that go down. The people are coming together to help one another.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the bright side of it. I think, you know, people power is definitely a way to put it all together. But I do think, I just think with corruption and especially using these types of technologies against the people, that's something I'm a little bit concerned about. Manipulation of information, because we are dealing with an air sign and we're dealing with a fixed sign, like you said.
Right.
And fixed air is incredibly, in the negative, dogmatic. You know, it's incredibly like one-sided, and this is my way or the highway. So, you know, I think we need to take care of this in our societies and also look for it in ourselves if we're getting too rigid. You know, if we're building walls against each other and we're not actually listening anymore because we've got some vision of what we think is correct. And this is often where the problems have started in history. I mean, the last time we had this aspect was in 1777 through to 1797. And that was during the US, you had the Revolution and the French Revolution in that period.
Yep.
So,
or the Irish Rebellion happened against British rule as well. There was a
whiskey. Was there a whiskey rebellion? I read. Is that the same thing? That's funny.
I'm not sure. I don't think it was the same.
Okay, but
I
lots of rebellion.
Sure. I think that there was actually there was more revolutions than just the ones we named. I'm not familiar with all of them, but there was quite an uprising that happened the last time.
Yeah, I read about something last night. It was called the XYZ affair against France, and it was an undeclared naval war, which brings in those water significations as well, because Aquarius is the water bearer. Now, it is an air sign.
Right.
I touched my screen and disappeared. It does have some significations for water because it depicts a woman pouring the waters of reason down onto the planet, you know, and so there is that reasonable aspect of it, which is all good and well, but when reason overrides the heart and we get that detachment of the head and heart, that's when we see problems, you know, that's when we see a lack of empathy and compassion in society, and that's really risky for the future of humanity.
Yeah, when I think about the water bearer too, with Aquarius, there's something with that where there's like this transmutation of ideas into emotion, where when Aquarius in its highest vibe can be that, you know, mind, body, soul, all working together, which I feel like gives that Aquarian like universal love, looking out for everyone, which it can be Aquarius and Pluto in its highest form. But when it's out of sync, out of whack, out of balance, you know, it doesn't go that smoothly.
No. And I actually was looking, someone introduced me to this new technology called, it's pretty popular actually. I'm just a bit behind the game, but it's called Chat GPT. Have you ever seen that?
No.
Oh my God. So I was looking on this. So it's an AI platform, and you can actually ask it virtually anything, right? So you can put in, and I had a look last night. I said, like, what were the political happenings between 1777 and 1797? And yeah, it is next level ridiculous. So it just scours the internet for information, and you can ask it virtually anything.
I know what you're talking about. I do.
Yeah. And this is just a pretty new thing. Like, this was launched at the end of November. And I mean, this is the future. And I feel like this transit through Aquarius is going to be developing more and more technologies like this.
Yeah.
And this means a lot for our learning institutions, our own sense of intelligence, because if we just type it into a computer, we don't really have to do any research of our own, and we've already got Google. I mean, this is just Google on steroids.
Right. So I actually used something similar. It was like an AI dream interpreter.
Ooh, what is that?
Accurate. I've only used it, but I saw like a reel about it, and I went and real quick looked it up because I had a crazy dream the night before, and I was like, wow, this was pretty spot on, but kind of scary.
Okay. Yeah, that's the thing. There's a scary aspect. We can't forget, as much as we can say that Aquarius is, it tends to fairness because it's a humane sign. It's an air sign. It's about that, rational thinking. But remember, it's ruled by the planet Saturn in traditional astrology, and Saturn's the hard taskmaster. Yeah. Saturn's it is the iron fist, so it's not. I don't think it's going to be smooth sailing. I think we're going to have quite a bit of revolutionary activity. We're going to have quite a bit of, I don't know. I mean, I know that the Australian political situation at the moment, and I'm living with someone who is incredibly political. He's been telling me about all the purchasing of all these weapons and the tremendous billions and billions of dollars Australia is spending, and our connection with the United States, and the risk of war going up every single day. Now, I don't want to be a fearmonger. This is not the purpose of this video, but I don't want to be in denial either, because we are at a risky time in history with global resources going down and, the planet on the verge. So I think, like I said in my little thing about water yesterday, it sort of starts with us. It starts with the individual. And if we can do it within us, if we can come to a place of healing within us, then we're going to be less inclined to do destructive things around the planet. If we could get leaders to actually do that work on themselves so that they're not such sociopaths and psychopaths.
Yeah. I really think that we're going to see the change within the people way before the change in the government structures. I hope I'm wrong with that, but I do kind of feel like this sense that the people will start doing things their own way and working their communities, especially, Aquarius is all about their communities. One of the things that I was kind of thinking about is how in the United States we have mass shootings on a regular basis. It's almost an everyday basis. It's pretty sad at this point because there's no possible way to keep up with all of them. A lot of them are happening in schools. And this is obviously terrifying. And I think, especially after COVID, we saw a lot of parents decide that they were going to homeschool, especially when the schools were open, close, open, close. I kind of feel like we might start seeing these communal homeschool situations where maybe there's one house in the neighborhood that, is they are the ones that's the house where you drop your kids off. I kind of feel like we're going to start seeing these little things like that take over that are community-based.
Yeah, and I think that's really positive, and I really hope so. I think in Australia I've already seen that during COVID, and I think it's going to be more and more so. But hopefully just lots of little community groups. I know a lot of people here are buying big blocks of land and just putting various houses and things on there and just doing the communal living thing. That is really big here in Australia because the trust in the government has gone down a lot, and I think the collective mind of humanity hopefully is enough to kind of heal the world, because I don't think the governments are coming around anytime soon. It has to come from the people.
Yeah. It's totally...
They're not going to save us. They don't want to save us.
No. Coming to save us, it's going to be us. The people. I know what you were... Last time we talked, you were talking about surveillance that... And we...
Yeah.
And I think we're actually starting to see more of that. And I know other countries they're dealing with major privacy issues, breaches.
Yeah, all this is going to come out. And I mean, the surveillance you were talking about, I looked into it, and the spend for it globally is in the billions of dollars. Like, there's more surveillance equipment than there is people on the earth. Even when we go around the streets here, every light fitting has got a camera, like a circular camera behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And surely that's not just for our safety. I feel pretty safe without like 100 cameras within, you know, a few meters. It's just a bit much, so it's over the top. And I mean, Pluto does intensify whatever it touches, you know, when it goes into Aquarius, you know, this is definitely bringing things up into the mind. And there is a sense of control when we go into the sign of Aquarius because it's ruled by Saturn.
Yeah.
And so that can have its positives and negatives. We can use it to have the appropriate boundaries and controls. But when it gets taken too far, then we get these types of things with just too much surveillance. And then what do we get? We get paranoia.
Right. And
paranoia is another sign of Saturn. You know, we get that fear and paranoia. And who wants to walk around feeling like you're constantly being watched? I mean, which we all are, I guess, already.
Yeah. I think that they're, on a uplifting note, I think that we will see a lot of people kind of diving into different forms of spiritual practices, like almost this idea of if we do experience, or if different places around the world experience a stronger sense of control, I feel like there will be kind of this surge of people who start working with spirituality as a way to go inward and find the release of control, like through like the mind, especially like with, you know, Aquarius being air, intellect, like going inward to find more freedom, which is what ultimately also, that's what the thing about Aquarius, it is structure, but it's also freedom at the same time. So finding freedom.
Yeah, finding
control.
Yeah, and finding that within, I think, is really a really good idea for people. It's like to have a meditation practice or some kind of practice that provides a sense of detachment, which is one of the Aquarian significations, you know. But we can use detachment to actually protect ourselves sometimes, you know. We can use detachment, like you said, to connect to spirituality, and then to go back into the group. You know, the group during this period of time over the next 20 years is likely to get pretty crazy at times. So having a practice that we can do on the regular that actually does provide us a bit of space, which is very important for Aquarius. You know, it's important for us to have that space factor. I mean, I'm saying us because I've got Aquarius rising, but as a collective, you know, we do need to get that. So, yeah, I mean, it's not a full on into Aquarius for the next 20 years. We're going to be going back and forth into Capricorn. So we've only got like 2.5 months, and then it goes back into Cap. And
this is really just
yeah, this is our little intro to say, oh, this is what you've got on the cards for the next 20 years.
I do have a feeling like within this time frame between now and June 11th, like that we will likely see, we're going to see something. Something's going to, that we're going to be like, that is Pluto and Aquarius.
Oh, absolutely. I can already see it, like with those articles about the water shortages and the threat of these types of wars and things. Like, these are Pluto and Aquarius. I mean, Pluto is connected to war, but hopefully we can find a way with our rationality, with our minds, maybe through science, because Aquarius is very scientific. Maybe there's some way we can outsmart, you know, these more brutal forms of cruelty, like just using our minds, using our connection with the world, with each other, like you said, coming together, the liberation of humankind.
Yeah.
But we've got this to and fro. Like, I'm just looking at the dates here. I think we go back into Cappy, and then we come out, I think it's early next year. We'll be in a similar position by degree at this time. Like, it's like 2 degrees by this time. I think we go back in Feb from memory. I've got it written down somewhere here.
I might be.
Anyway, we do like a couple of back and forths, and we don't get fully into Pluto and Aquarius until like November next year.
Yeah, that's what I have, November 19th for that. Yeah. And I think it'll be actually interesting too. I do feel like, because we've got Capricorn and Aquarius, two signs, you know, traditionally ruled by Saturn, I feel like we will see this kind of continuing of Pluto and Capricorn themes. There'll just be a different, I think some of the themes will be similar, but there's going to be a different twist on it. But I do think we will see some similarities kind of like going through. What will be interesting too, from an evolutionary point of view, I think starting July, Pluto at 29 degrees will be squaring the North Node for, I have to double check, but it's for a while. So we're gonna like see this kind of like going back. Okay, what steps did we skip? What didn't we see? What do we have to do karmically to clear that energy that we have just kind of skimmed over and didn't fully address in the way that we were supposed to the first time? So I think that's interesting as well, this like in between.
Yeah, and that's definitely a tipping point, like that sort of bendings of the nodes, or like, you know, at the north and south node in the middle, at the T-square of that's a little bit like that's kind of decision time, or that's the edge itself. You know, something has to change at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of, like we all are, just going to have to sit and pay attention. But I think Pluto through Capricorn, that was definitely remembering it, you know, the earth sign features. So like you said, the corporate greed, you know, that physical, the overuse of resources. You know, we're in the position we are now because of Pluto and Capricorn, because of that just too much of everything, you know, too much buying, too much spending, too much of the physical. And now it's taking us, in a sense, out of the physical,
right,
you know, into the artificial intelligence, into the science and the facts and all the rest of it. Now, that's fine as long as those are actually not corrupt.
Right.
Now, with Pluto and Aquarius, there can be corruption of information. And so we've just got to be sure that we're checking our information, and not just using maybe these so-called government fact checkers, because if they've got their own interests and we can't trust them all the time, then we'll be a bit crazy to follow what they say.
100%. And that's where I think it goes back into like going, you know, Aquarius, the most established, mature air sign that rules the higher mind, like going within into our own spaces, into our own energy, and coming to our own conclusions about things, like taking all of the information and really going inward to figure out what is it that I really think is going on, like coming to our own decisions and conclusions about things after reviewing all of the information. Because as we know, a lot of the information given is not trustworthy or reliable. A lot of it is propaganda, and it serves a political purpose.
Absolutely. Looking at the Aries ingress of this year, it was just like the propaganda scale is turned right up. And I know for Australia it's only valid for 3 months, but yeah, that's definitely a key word here for Pluto in Aquarius. So just don't believe your TV. Don't listen to the news. And if you can listen, like you can pay attention, but just take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, 100%. I think another thing that we can expect is technological advances, for sure, breakthroughs in new technology, which could be, you know, really beneficial for us. It would be great if we could see like medical advancements and things like that as well.
Yeah, I think we're definitely going to see have received gains in terms of technology, but I think it's always going to be walking the line, like it has been Pluto in Capricorn. You know, we get the resources, we might get the stability, we might get the nice house, but then what are we giving up to get that? So now it's like we want to get these new technologies, but there's going to be a cost involved as well. So we've just got to be careful of what we're signing up for. And I think Pluto and Aquarius it's also worthy of checking the fine print when you're signing things. You know, air signs connect to documentation. Like the, what was it, after the war in America in 1777, you're the American, I'm trying to remember. But after the war, when they signed the Declaration, you know, the signing of these important documents is very Pluto and Aquarius, you know, because they hold a lot of weight. Pluto's ruled by in Saturn's house right now, you know, so it's got that heaviness, it's got that responsibility. So, I mean, I hope that means that that at least groups of individuals, but hopefully governments, will take it more seriously. They'll be more cautious, which is a really good Saturnian word, before they sign things, before they give away our freedoms for advances in technology and stuff. But hopefully we can get a bit of both. You know, we can have advances and we can also be protected by those who rule us.
I think we will see a bit of both, for sure. I definitely think even if, like, we don't have the powers that be protecting us, I do feel that there will be this surge of people, like, speaking out. Like, we are living in a post-COVID world. Things are very different. Just as far as, like, people's finances, things are very different. In the U.S., everything is so expensive. The cost of living is just astronomical, and it's been really challenging, especially for certain people. Hopefully Saturn in Pisces comes in and kind of helps out with you know, social causes and things like that as well. But there is just this feeling of, like, I don't know, I just feel this kind of like Pluto's really gonna, like, take us through it before we can, and then once we're kind of in it, then we're gonna have to figure out what to do.
Yeah, and that's part of it, isn't it? You know, the figuring out part is definitely the Aquarian part. But I think our earnings, our resources, our finances are going to go even more online, even more into crypto, even more into these non-tangible, non-physical currencies now that we've left, or we're in the process of leaving Pluto in Capricorn. So I think this leads into things like needing to be cautious of our data and cyber safety, again, because Pluto can be about corruption, it can be about manipulation. So be careful with where you put your money, but there could be some really big gains to be had, you know, with investing in clever crypto at this time. So yeah, I think that's on the cards for sure. A different currency, obviously a global currency is on the cards, but I don't think that's necessarily for the good of the people. So I think more like bartering in communities and things like that or it's already increasing. I've actually got a friend of mine who started a company called Tit for Tat, and they do, well, you know, people jump on there and, you know, if you've got something to offer, you will offer that, and then someone else will offer you something back in return. So that's a beautiful way to, you know, not need money. You can just share services.
That feels very Aquarian too.
Right?
Yeah. What are your thoughts on there's a lot of talk, and I'm not, like, well versed in this, so I can only say that people are talking about it, and that's just all I can really offer. But there's a lot of talk about, like, possible, like, financial resets, especially in the U.S. I can't
say I'm much of a financial expert at all. Yeah, I was looking when I was looking at the ingress, I was wondering, because it looks like, at least in the Australian chart, Venus is quite well placed, and she was ruling the second house of resources of the country. And I was trying to make sense of it because interest rates are going through the roof, and there's a lot of fear and everything in terms of resources for the people. But it does look like the country here in Australia, at least, is going to be going quite well. But I think it's more due to our connection with allies like America, which I'm not sure that that's a good thing for us in terms of long term, in terms of the safety of the country and things, as far as Russia and, you know, the involvement with America and we're getting dragged into things. So yeah, it's hard to say as far as the global finances go. I definitely see, I'm not sure. I mean, Pluto's definitely connected to wealth, like tremendous wealth, especially certain aspects to Pluto, like the Jupiter-Pluto aspects. But I just think wealth will take on a different tone.
Yeah.
Wealth will probably be harder to trace. I think wealth will leave bank accounts. I know that I've seen some interesting videos and articles about, how banks really can't supply the funds that they have. So say you give the bank $1 billion and they might only have to hold, I don't even think they have to hold any of it anymore, but they used to have to hold a certain percentage. Yep. And so I think this is a sign, again, of things becoming non-material and leaving that Capricorn period and going into the air.
Yeah. I think that you're right. I think that there's a lot of signs that kind of are pointing in that direction. Structuring around money in general.
Yeah.
Different way of.
Yeah. It's a bit uneasy. But I think, what I unfortunately sort of see is that these sort of elites or the rich of the rich seem to just keep getting richer and richer. Perhaps, that was a Pluto and Capricorn problem, because it's connected to these corporates, connected to these elites, the big money tycoons. It's very Pluto Cap.
Yeah.
But, hopefully Pluto into Aquarius will figure out that that's not fair. And there'll be maybe a more even division, or at least hopefully. I mean, it really does depend on the ethics of the governments and on the ethics of those in power. And I'm hoping, Aquarius is generally quite ethical unless it's poorly aspected. But when we throw Pluto in there, Pluto can be quite a challenge. So I think we might learn the hard way, and we might have to adapt, and we might need to go through a little bit of a dark night of the soul and then come through it and get closer together as a community to find healing together.
Yeah, I that's how I kind of see it going down as well, especially when it comes to environmental stuff as well. I mean, we're pushing it so far, at least in the United States. I can say, we are just, we're not doing the things that we should be doing. And I think that was a big part of Pluto and Capricorn, having to look at the repercussions of disrespecting the earth energy, of what happens when, you were saying when we first started, just the taking, and the greed associated with that. We're left now with a lot of big environmental issues that are a global issue. I mean, we are a global economy, a global world. We are all causing problems. I think, there's a lot that we could do here, especially in the U.S., that we're just not doing. I kind of get this feeling like we're going to just be pushing things further and further and further to the edge. And then we're going to probably see that Aquarian scientific mind come in at the last minute. And people are going to have to figure out, okay, what can we do to stop this? That I kind of think that that fast moving.
It concerns me because, leaving Pluto in Aquarius, I feel leaving Pluto in Cap, that really feels like our real chance. And so I'm really hoping over this next, we've got a year and a half until it's fully in Aquarius. So I'm hoping that the governments can get together and actually make some really lasting changes, because, I was considering Aquarius, and Aquarius is a sanguine sign. It's in humoral theory. So sanguine is hot and wet. Okay. Now, this is an old sort of medical model. When they were using astrology and medicine, that's where it all kind of started. But the thing about sanguine is, if you think about sea levels, hot is what melts the ice, and extra water is contributing to these rising sea levels. This is a real risk to our future as a civilization. So the ecological is definitely, I definitely think that it'll be helpful having the, you know, the mind on to actually try and come up with some future orientated solutions. But I'm a bit concerned that it's, you know, we're running out of time, or it's heading towards too late.
I think that we may face things. Let's say we do face things where situations are too late. I think that we're going to potentially have to adapt in a new way and stretch ourselves in a way that we've maybe not had to do before, and learning new ways of living in order to counteract or to adjust with what's happening, having to come up with new solutions, like that Aquarius is the future, and we may not be able to live the same way as we did in the past.
Yes, I totally agree. And I think that's a very, very reasonable point to make, given the way things are going. And, you know, I'm hoping that, you know, we can get a really big dose of compassion. I am concerned that division of head and heart, like that is a big concern for me, because Aquarius can be incredibly detached and incredibly irrational to the point of exclusion of feelings. So I'm just hoping, I mean, obviously Pluto is not the only planet that is transiting. We have a lot of other aspects going on. We have a lot of other planets having, you know, these relationships with Pluto as it moves. So I'm hoping there'll be other things that can also come in and sort of add more compassion and sensitivity to the picture. I know that Aquarius tends to be fair. So I guess if we can just try and aim for the more positive expression of that sign, we should be right.
I mean, I think of, like, you know, there's the low road of each sign and the high road, and when I think of fairness and justice, you know, Aquarius is the first. We've got Libra too, of course, but like Aquarius comes to mind. So it also depends, like, on how we are working with these energies. Are we working with the lower energy of Aquarius, or are we working with the higher road of Aquarius? I think that will. I think we're going to see both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, as far as just perhaps forming these communities ASAP, you know, I think a lot of people here are. Have you got lots of little communities starting where you're living, like little?
Definitely in the country, not necessarily where I live, but in the country, yes, we do. We do. And I wouldn't be surprised if, I mean, I'm sure we're going to see more of that. I mean, I know that there's an increase in that for sure. And I think that there's more of like an increase of just people living more alternative lifestyles. And I that's been a big change in general. You know, and another thing that just came to me too, I wonder if we see an increase in astrology and how people use astrology. Aquarius rules astrology. So I wonder if we will see that become more mainstream in some way.
I think that we will probably see more growth in astrology, and we might see more research into astrology because of the scientific element of Aquarius. I would not be surprised at all. We could also see the opposite. We could see more skepticism coming in because of the scientific aspect of Aquarius. So, yeah, let's hope not, because I want to keep sharing our ideas together. Don't want to be too enforced. But, yeah, I think we'll see growth in a lot of interesting ideas, things that are slightly outside of the box, which will hopefully be the beginning of like a sense of collective evolution for us all.
I really do feel that. I do think that people will be looking for more alternative lifestyles, especially if they're feeling more repressed, you know, in their life or in their daily routine, or like what their grind is supposed to look like. I do think we're going to see I see. I guess I like look at the powers that be and the people kind of going to be doing like these very fixed ideas going in the opposite direction. That's kind of in my mind how I'm seeing it. And I think that the people are going to find alternative solutions or new ways of being and existing to find their own sense of freedom, even if we, especially if we go through periods where it feels as if freedoms are being taken away. I think we're going to see people making decisions to figure out a way around it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we'll have a lot of different groups of people. You know, we'll have people sort of fixing together based on their beliefs or based on their viewpoints. And that's again, that's fine as long as people can get along. But again, we're going to have, like you said, we're going to have the bright and the dark. So we're going to need to ride the wave, ride the what are they? The waters of reason. Surf on the waters of reason for the next 20 years. So this is all the way through until 2043.
Yeah.
That's a really long time.
That's a long time. So, I mean, there's definitely going to be a lot of work done, for sure. What do you think about, like, space travel and things like that? I tend to think that we may see more of that.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Yeah, I do tend to connect Aquarius with space travel. And I also connect planet Uranus. So I think, yeah, more inquiries, more research into other planets, probably, more research into the potential to sort of ship some of us off there to use their resources, probably, as we've exhausted our own.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, that's highly possible. And perhaps new technologies, as far as actually, you know, like you said about the way we live, but perhaps living in different places, maybe living under the ground or living, you know, because Pluto does connect to things that are underground. So we could see new underground cities start up, or, you know, maybe we could see, you know, those planes flying, you know, like in the Jetsons. I've always wanted to see that. Maybe this is when we're going to see that.
That's exactly how like, when I first thought about Pluto and Aquarius, I'm like, the Jetsons. Like, that's just
Right.
like in my mind how I see it. But I do think that we will also maybe, the technology will move forward and we'll see different ways of exploring space, maybe different cameras that we can go. I mean, we're seeing that now, but going further than we have before, being able to find new research, new ways to research, new information, and kind of opening up a whole different galaxies that we didn't know existed. I think that we will see that area expand, especially as technologies are changing and advancing.
There will be a lot of exciting things that come up. There will be a lot of fresh new things that we can be engaging with, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a positive for sure. What do you think about work? Like, how do you think people are going to be working in this next period?
I think that we are going to see work completely change over the course of these next 20 years. I think that we are going, I mean, we're already seeing it. I think that we're going to see a lot of like robots, machines taking over a lot of jobs. I mean, like, I don't know how it is where you are, but like in grocery stores, at Target, like what all stores, there you are a self-checkout. Like, you don't have that. I'm hearing like certain banks are doing that too. I mean, there is just like, I think we are going to see certain jobs that people used to count on, especially jobs that, like, you know, entry-level jobs, or even just jobs that maybe teenagers used to do. I think we're going to see a lot less. I think we're just going to decrease in a lot of different areas, because I think that we're already seeing how big companies are moving towards eliminating people, adding in machines. It's like they don't have to pay as many people. We're gonna see a big change with that. And I also think that like a lot of people are not wanting to spend 8-9 hours going to work. I think we'll see that trend continue on where we don't have as many people like in office. I think a lot of people will start working for themselves. Like that's already been a theme, but I think that we will continue to see more of that.
Less corporate work, like with Pluto moving out of Capricorn. Less of that working for the man on the rat wheel. Mm-hmm. Hopefully more individual passions, people following what really lights them up inside, not just chasing the dollar bills. Hopefully, that what you said about the machines is so on point, and it makes me laugh because I went out for dinner the other night and actually a robot served me my dinner.
That happened.
Like it brought the dinner over and it said a few words, and then I took the plate and it said have a great night, and it just rolled off. I was like, okay, bye. I used to talk to the checkouts, you know, when they first came in, when you have to do your own grocery scanning and stuff. When I was getting used to it, I'd be like, I wouldn't say hello, of course, but when I'd finish, I'd be like, thanks, and I'd be like, oh, you just said thanks to a computer. You just said thanks to the machine.
I think.
Oh well, polite.
I think we're going to see a lot of that. I think that there's going to be a big change, and that is kind of where, in my mind, that's where I kind of think that there could be restructuring around how finances are done or what happens, because what will the impact be as these jobs are removed and people can't just like quick go get something when they need a job? Like what happens when these positions are eliminated? What happens then? Because unless we're in other areas, and not everybody can like work in robotics or tech, you know what I mean? Like that's a very specific thing. So
maybe it'll be like a sense of more people following their own, their passions for learning. You know, maybe if you maybe a lot of people don't want to work anymore, and maybe what they'll do is they'll go into communities, they'll start sharing or swapping their skills with other people's skills, and they won't work anymore. Maybe they'll just learn, they'll study, they might share their knowledge with other people, share their skills. I don't know, maybe we'll just see less of that program, that work program of like, you've got to work 5 days a week, you've got to work 40 hours a week, blah, blah. Maybe that will change. That'll be shattered.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we see more of that, especially when there's a lot of other countries that are kind of, even like corporations in other countries are taking the lead with that and doing more of like a 4-day work week and things like that. I think that we will continue to see that change more. I hope.
Yes. Yeah, I do too. It'd be great if people could start to really connect with their inner passions, you know, rather than be feeling like they need to walk on that rat wheel to survive and to feed the family. That would be progress for me if I could see that happening more.
Yeah, 100%. And that's kind of like along the themes of what I was thinking with people going inward and really figuring out when they're facing oppression, like how can I reinvent my life in a way that offers me more freedom, that can expand, or not just have to like follow the way that things have always been. Like that could be a really like powerful way of kind of reclaiming power back when you feel as if you control.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That progressive mind that actually takes you, you know, into what is in alignment for you. So now I think in a minute we might have to wrap up, because can you believe we've actually been an hour? That's gone so fast.
No, you and I have done this before where we go for hours. I don't know what happened, so I'm not that surprised.
Amazing. Well, where can people find you? Like what's your website and stuff?
So you can find me at rebelvenus.com. There is a link in my Instagram at the top where you can find me.
Awesome. I can't wait to do another one of these with you soon. Yeah, if anyone wants to find me, you can find me at my website, which I've already mentioned. But thank you so much for watching, everybody, and let's get our popcorn out, let's get our heart connected, and keep our mind calm for this next 20-year period.
Sounds good. Thanks so much. It was so good talking with you today.
You too, lovely. Bye-bye.